Welcome. You think I know it by heart by now. Welcome to Garden of the Spirit, a class studying apples from the orchard for the second time, beginning after Pesach 2014. This class meets in Long Meadow, Massachusetts, the center of the universe, and is held in memory of Malka Ruth Bas Moshe Margaret Vogel of blessed memory. Apples from the Orchard contain selections of teachings of Kabbalah from the Arizal of Yitzhak Luria, based on the weekly Torah portion, superbly translated and explained by Rabbi Moshe Wisniewski. Okay. So we're going to start page 412 at the bottom, and this is, we're talking about the damages. The Gemara says that there are 4 avos nezikin. There are 4 categories, general categories of damages. There is a shore, an ox that gores. There's bor, that's a obstacle left in the road that someone hurts themselves on. There's hever, which is an argument. Some say it's damage caused by you, and some say it's damage caused by an animal that does something for its own pleasure, like it goes into someone else's field and eats their fennel or eats their blueberries or anything. I haven't forgotten Gershon. And then and Mava, which one was which? And which is a fire that gets out of hand and burns someone else. So we said what they correspond to, and we're talking about damage that occurs in the process of creation. We broke down. Well, we're gonna break this down. I wasn't able to finish the notes for this chapter that we're doing now. But we will start here. Oh. November 29th is when the UN voted to partition Palestine and allow for a Jewish state. Okay, so we're going to start 412 at the bottom. There are 5 subcategories of horn. Remember, horn means damage which the animal does out of anger. The first one is damage that the animal does with its horn. Damage of horn includes damage caused by an animal out of anger. Look at that, I didn't realize I wrote it. Goring. There are 5 of these. Goring, pushing, biting, laying down, and kicking. Sounds like a typical day in preschool, huh?
typical day in Congress.
In Congress, yeah. Not in LIA, of course. These correspond to the 5 states of Gvura in Malchus. Alan, are you ready?
I'm ready.
412 at the bottom.
There are 5 aspects of the horn, 2 being aspects of the main category and 3 being its derivatives. The 2 aspects of the main category are goring and pushing. The 3 derivatives are biting, laying down, and kicking. These 5 correspond to the 5 states of Gevura in Malchus.
Okay, I'm sorry. Damage caused, we did this last time, I think.
Well, Gersh was here, so do it.
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember if this 24 goes for this.
All
right, damage. Let me go ahead. Damage caused by tooth. Tooth means that the animal, things that the animal does for its own pleasure, like eating stuff from someone else's field, but it would also include, let's say, scratching his back against a doorway, and then the doorway collapses. Damage caused by tooth corresponds to Gvura, and foot corresponds to Hod. Both are in Atzilus. They also correspond to Malchus of Bria and Malchus of Yetzira. So they correspond within Atzilus, and then they correspond to Malchus of the lower levels of creation. Since they are high up in Atzilus, the damage is more subtle and doesn't really cause damage in Bria and Yetzirah. Bria and Yetzirah are considered the public domain. Last time we learned, I think it was last time.
Yes,
Yes, last time we did the public domain and the private domain.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, I'm going to go back because I filled that in this. I didn't have it done last week, so I'm going to read it now.
Right.
We know of the difference on Shabbos between Rishus Hayachid and Rishus Rabbim, the public domain and the private domain.
Mhm.
It's forbidden to carry in the public domain. It's permitted to carry in the private domain.
Mhm.
In Kabbalah, the private domain refers to a place where Hashem is in control, namely Atzilus.
Mhm.
It's called Rishus HaYachid. Yachid means private or individual, but Yachid also means the private domain, but it also means Yechido Shel Olam, the only one of the world.
Yep.
The public domain refers to a place where other powers are at play, namely the lower three levels, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. That's the public domain.
Right.
This is one of the reasons why when the Rebbe spoke about putting menorahs on public places, he meant not only places that are public, like a shopping mall, but public meaning that they don't belong to any private group. So like what we call public property. Okay, a shopping mall, everyone goes there, but it's not public property. It's still private property. He talked about being public property like we have here at Court Square. And he says, because we want to transform the public domain into a private domain. We want to take the public domain where it's hefker, people can do whatever they want, and change it into the Yechido Shel Olam, the domain of the only one of the world. Let's go back here. So Bria and Yetzirah are considered the public domain. For the light damage they cause, that the tooth and the foot cause, it doesn't really cause damage to Bria and Yetzirah. It's similar to driving heavy equipment in an empty lot. It's not as bad as driving heavy equipment on a cultivated ball field. Understand the difference?
Mhm.
The damage caused by tooth and foot, it's not really so bad in Bria and Yetzirah. Okay, Alan, go ahead, read this now.
Since the aspects of evil opposite Gevurah and Hod, that is the tooth and the foot, are on a higher level than the aspects of evil opposite Malchus, that is the horn, they cannot cause damage in the public domain, the earthly manifestation of the levels below Malchus of Atzilus, that is Malchus of Bria. They are therefore not liable for damage they cause there, since that is their natural abode and natural behavior. Malchus of any world is the field or domain of that world. Thus, while in a general sense we speak of all the three lower worlds belonging or being the public domain, in particular, this refers to the Malchus of these worlds. As will be explained presently, the three aspects of the ox, the tooth, the foot, and the horn, in addition to corresponding to Gevurah, Hod, and Malchus of Atzilus, correspond to the three lower worlds as well. In other words, these forms of evil originate as corruptions of the three channels of Gevurah of Atzilus, but settle in the three gradations of creature consciousness, that is, the three worlds. Since the tooth and the foot originate in the higher two of the three Gevurah channels of Atzilus, they settle in Bria and Yetzirah. Since this is their natural abode, whatever harm they do there cannot be considered exceptional damage, just as an ox grazing or trampling things in the public domain cannot be considered exceptional damage.
All right. And we ran out of time there. So then on the other hand, the horn we said is in Malchus, which is the bottom of Atzilus. And I think we said before it can only do damage in half of Malchus. And so the tooth, damage by tooth, we said it would be Gvura and Atzilus and Bria. Damage by the foot is in Hod and Yetzira, and damage by the horn is, we said, in the bottom of Malchus and also in Asiya. Okay, go ahead, Alan.
In contrast, the horn, which is a lower form of evil, does not naturally ascend even to this level, whereas these other two abide there naturally. This is because the three subcategories of the ox correspond to the three lower worlds, Berea, Yetzirah, and Asiya. And specifically, the horn corresponds to the world of Asiya. It therefore causes damage when it ascends higher than its natural abode. The tooth and the foot, however, correspond to Berea and Yetzirah respectively, and thus it is their nature to roam about in the public domain.
So like that's where they're at home. That's their natural place.
The tooth originates in Atzilus, habitat Berea. The foot originates in Hod, and the habitat is Yetzirah, and the horn originates in Malchus and habitat Asiya. When an ox gores, thus, it goes out of the bounds of its natural behavior. This is the equivalent of creature consciousness ascending into Nukva of Atzilus, outside its normal abode of the three lower worlds, and causing damage there. Or perhaps the intention is that Asiya is a lower level even than the public domain, that is the realm of evil, where it is natural for an ox to gore. When the goring ox gores in Berea or Yetzirah, however, the more docile public domain, it is exhibiting behavior out of context for this relatively safe environment, and therefore its owner is liable at least for half the value of its damages.
Mhm.
Okay.
One more little piece.
414, Alan.
Want to go on?
Yeah.
But when the tooth and the foot ascend to cause damage in the domain of the plaintiff, that is in Malchus of Atzilus, they will cause damage, Hashem forbid, in its entirety. They therefore make their owner liable for paying full damages. Since they originate above Malchus, they have more power to cause damage than the horn does.
The domain of the plaintiff means the person in whose yard the damage was caused. Last week we spoke about the difference between an animal that's in public domain and the animal has a right to be there. So people are should be more careful to watch out for animals. But if you have your own private yard, someone else's animal has no business there. And so over there is more damage. The owner of the animal is liable for damage. That's why he says that there's greater damage in the domain of the plaintiff.
Mhm.
And this is why the owner would be liable there for full damages. Amazing, guys. I think we probably said this before, but it's amazing how there's everything. Nothing is just its face value.
Oh,
Right?
that's
Right.
not it.
Everything, there's a deeper level. Everything's connected. Okay, ready to continue?
Sure.
New topic. The Torah says to celebrate 3 festivals a year, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. On these festivals, it is a mitzvah for all men to celebrate at the Beis Hamikdash. Or to make a pilgrimage to the Beis Hamikdash. The word for festival is typically moed, as we say, moadim l'simcha. Moed usually means something that's designated, like a designated time. But the Torah refers to the festivals as regalim, which literally means legs. We have the shalosh regalim, the 3 legs. By using this word, the Torah implies that only people who can walk on their own power are obligated to visit the Beis Hamikdash, which exempts people who are old or late from going to the Beis Hamikdash on the festivals, or for that matter, people who are too young, like small children who aren't able to walk that far are exempt. Now, so that's one thing very unusual, this regalim. We're going to speak about that and explain in Kabbalah why the Torah calls them 3 regalim. The word for holiday, chag, in this case is a verb to celebrate. This is closely related to one of the words for circle or rotate. It's a little new to me. The Torah says 3 festivals, regalim, you shall celebrate tachog for me in the year. Okay, Jim, are you ready?
Yes.
Please
Legs,
begin. Chapter
legs to stand on. You shall celebrate for me 3 festivals a year. The word for festivals in this verse is regalim, the plural of regal, which also means leg. On the other hand, the root of the verb to celebrate, chog, is hug, to rotate, to encircle, emphasizing a yearly cycle of holidays. Giving also chag, which is another word for holiday. The word is related to the word for compass, mechuga, and gave rise to the rabbinic usage of mahog for gesture. It thus carries the association of hand movement.
Okay, thanks. I'm not sure if I saw that a reference to that in the text later about the significance of chag. Maybe one reference. In Hebrew today, chug is also a club or a pod, or there must be another word for it, like club, I guess. 3. The first 3 midos, chesed, gvur, and tiferes. That's spheres number 4, 5, and 6. Correspond to the arms and torso. The next 3, netzach, hod, and yesod, correspond to the legs and bris milah. Since tiferes is a blend of chesed and gvura, it can also be considered a hand. And since yesod is a blend of netzach and hod, it can also be considered a leg. Jim, go ahead.
The first 3 midot, chesed, gevurah, tiferet, are termed hands, while the second 3, netzach, hod, yesod, are termed legs. In Kabbalah, chesed is associated with the right arm, gevurah with the left, tiferet with the torso, netzach with the right leg, hod with the left leg, and yesod with the reproductive organ.
Continue.
To explain, chesed, gevurah, tiferet are identified as the 2 arms, and the general harmonizing principle, which is tiferet between them, is also called a hand, since it functions as one hand that includes 2 other hands, chesed and gevurah. Thus, although torso is not a hand, since it serves to unify and harmonize the 2 real hands, it can be considered a figurative hand.
Okay, 4. The Torah speaks about the great hand of Hashem. This refers to Chesed. The Torah also mentions the mighty hand of Hashem. This refers to Gvura. And the uplifted hand in the Torah refers to Tiferet.
This is the mystical meaning of the great hand, the strong hand, and the uplifted hand between them, as mentioned in the Zohar. The great hand is Chesed, a synonym for which is Gedula, greatness. The strong hand is Gevura, and the uplifted hand is Tiferet.
Okay. The same way, Netzach and Hod are the two legs. Yesod is a blend of them and is therefore considered a third leg.
Corresponding to these are Netzach, Hod, Yesod, the three legs. For Netzach and Hod are the two legs, and they are included together in their harmonizing entity Yesod, which thus functions as the third leg.
6. When the Torah says 3 festivals, Regalim, you shall celebrate for me in the year, it means that Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot correspond to Malchus. The word for celebrate, tahog, refers to a bride who encircles her husband under the chuppah. We said before that the word chag is related to the word to encircle.
Yeah.
So the word to celebrate, tahog, refers to a bride, and I guess who encircles her husband under the chuppah. This wasn't clear, and the Hebrew, either I didn't understand or there's a typo. So I'm guessing at this. The groom of Malchus is their Ampin, and of which Netzach, Hod, and Yesod are the lower half. And the festivals are a result then of Netzach, Hod, and Yesod shining into Malchus. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, so this is the mystical meaning of the verse. You shall celebrate for me 3 festivals a year. For Malchus is termed holiday, a chag, of the bride, as mentioned in the beginning of Tikkuni Zohar, the manuscript. Malchut is the bride, the maid of Zeranpin, the groom. In the Zohar, Malchut is described as receiving the flow from the 3 Sephirot of Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, which are associated with the 3 festivals.
Keep going.
And it is conjoined with Netzach, Hod, Yesod, as we have stated.
And the next one.
It follows that these 3, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, shine to her 3 times a year. And through their power, the 3 holidays are produced on these 3 occasions.
Okay, so then he says, actually, the 3 festivals originate in Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes. From there, they shine into Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, and from there into Malchus.
Okay. Now, the 3 holidays actually originate in Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, but Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet shine down through Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and through Netzach, Hod, Yesod, they, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, shine into Malchus.
Okay. So this is pretty good. 3 festivals are 3 regalim because they're the 3 legs of the spheres, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. Or that shines into Malchus at that time. Now the mitzvah is for adult men to ascend to the Beis HaMikdash, where they gather at the courtyard, I'm going to change this, of Israel, Israel. The festivals are called regalim, legs, because we are required to walk there. Or only people who can walk are required to do the pilgrimage, to show that the divine light that shines for the 3 festivals comes from Netzach, Hod, and Yesod into Malchus. This is why this mitzvah depends on being able to walk. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
This explains the obligation to appear at the temple on the festivals. Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot are called pilgrim festivals because on them, most of the populace is required to travel to Jerusalem, appear at the temple in order to offer specific sacrifices. To explain, the commandment to appear at the temple is that the individual ascend on the three festivals to the court of the Israelites in order to appear there. The obligation only applies to adult males. The court of the Israelites is the easternmost 11 cubits of the courtyard surrounding the temple.
Okay, 10. I think this is it. Nope, go ahead to the next.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask Garrison, you ready to take over?
The mystical reason we're required to ascend there on foot is to give a spiritual power to the supernal legs, that means Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, on these three festivals. This is why they're not called, for example, three appointed times, but three festivals, in order to allude to the fact that the light from these three festivals shines via the supernal legs, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, into Malchus, as embodied in the court of the Israelites. For the word festival, regel, as we know, is the same as the word for leg. These three holidays are thus three leg holidays, holidays on which it is necessary to strengthen the supernal legs by using our own legs for holiness. That means to travel to Jerusalem and appear at the Holy Temple.
Okay, thanks. 10. Just outside the men's courtyard is the women's courtyard. It's called that because the women would stand on the balcony there to be separate from the men. The Beis HaMikdash was built on a mountain. As you walked through the Beis HaMikdash, you went further uphill.
Mm-hmm.
The courtyard of Yisrael was higher than the women's courtyard. The women's courtyard reaches Yesod within Malchus. The courtyard of Yisrael reaches Netzach, Hod, and Yesod of Ze'er Anpin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, okay, Gershon, go ahead. Read the next part.
In truth, the height of the stature of the women's court is up to the Yesod of its Malchus, while the height of the stature of the Israelites' court is up to the Netzach, Hod, Yesod of Ze'er Anpin. The women's court, Esrat Nashim, is an additional courtyard outside the courtyard of the temple proper. It is not called the women's court because women cannot enter any farther, for women can indeed enter the Israelites' court and even the priests' courts when they need to present a sacrifice. It is called the women's court because the women's gallery is above it, looking down into it. The various sections of the temple, as one enters on the east and proceeds westward, carry increasing holiness, meaning that only those purified from increasingly refined forms of defilement, tuma, may enter them. In mystical terms, this means that a westward progression within the temple precincts corresponds to an ascent through succeedingly higher realms of spirituality.
Okay, 11. The Torah says that when we go to the Beis HaMikdash festivals, I'm sorry, before I go on, we said that the women's courtyard reaches Yesod within Malchus, and the courtyard of Yisrael reaches Netzach, Hod, and Yesod of Ze'er Anpin. So Malchus is the feminine component. Ze'er Anpin is the masculine component. Yesod is where interaction takes place, where gamegenesis occurs. So if Malchus interacts with Ze'er Anpin, it takes place at the Yesod of each one. The Torah says that when we go to the Beis HaMikdash on festivals, we must bring a sacrifice. Do not see my face empty-handed. In Kabbalah, this means that Malchus is not alone at its own level. Rather, it's elevated to the level of Netzach, Hod, and Yesod of Ze'er Anpin and interacts in a manner of face to face. We've learned several times that this is an optimal interaction. On festivals, Malchus is not empty and alone. It is face to face with Ze'er Anpin. That is a happy ending. Okay, go ahead, Gershon.
But on the festivals, Nukba is face to face with Netzach Hod Yesod of Zerampin, this being the mystical meaning of the phrase, and they will not see my face empty-handed. Although this verse appears in the context of Passover, it is understood to apply to all three pilgrim festivals, referring to the obligatory offerings, Hagigah, that must be offered on these festivals. Here, the phrase means that Nuksva's face is not empty, that means not facing nothing, but facing her mate, Zerampin. The women's court ascends to the level of Israelites' court, indicating that the Jew whose soul hails from Malchus must also ascend to the Israelites' court on this festival.
Let me just fix this. Thank you. Rather it interact with okay. 12. Because Netzach Hod and Yesod, which are called legs, shine into Malchus on festivals, the mitzvah to make a pilgrimage to Beis Hamikdash is for people who can walk, and people who are lame or blind are exempt. Go ahead, therefore.
Therefore, the obligation of the pilgrimage on these festivals is dependent on the legs, and for this reason, lame and blind people are exempt, as mentioned in the Talmud, based on the expression leg festivals, regalim.
Regalim. Okay. The Talmud says that minors who can walk up the mountain are also obligated to be brought by their fathers. The children correspond to an undeveloped version of Zerampin, which is personified by Yaakov, corresponding to the letter Vav of Hashem's name. I wasn't exactly sure what this means, guys, but I think that's close. Okay, go ahead, Gershon.
Even a minor who can make the trip on foot must be educated to do so, for he personifies Zerampins in its youth as Jacob, which is only in the form of a Vav. At this stage, too, he must draw down light from the legs of that level. Jacob is the name of the immature version of the Parsuf of Zerampin.
Okay. The neshama is able to reach these spiritual heights. They are therefore called courtyards. Apparently, the souls cannot go into the levels that would be called a structure. You have to stay outside. The pasuk in Tehillim says, "Who can ascend Hashem's mountain? Who can arise in His holy place?" Something that we say often. Mi ala bahar Hashem, o mi yakum bimkom kadsho. Hashem's mountain, I think it's chapter 26. Hashem's mountain is the Temple Mount. His holy place is the courtyard of Yisrael. Okay, go ahead, Gershon.
Nonetheless, these levels are still only courtyards, external houses, for only unto such levels can the soul ascend, as mentioned in the Zohar on the verse, "Who can ascend Hashem's mountain, and who can arise in His holy place?" Hashem's mountain is the Temple Mount, and His holy place is the Israelites' courtyard. The end.
And it says then, after that, it says who can go. Someone who has clean hands and a pure heart. So that there is someone who can go. So the neshama is able to make it to these levels, these courtyards. So chapter 2 of Mishpatim, we talked all about the damages and the damages caused. Here we talked about the purity and going up on the festivals. Different topic. One moment, folks. Alan, What page do we go to next?
The back.
We go to the back.
Yeah, 1269.
Yep.